Hello, my name's Jade and today we will be discussing This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. I don't know if you're aware of Catty-tastic. She's a decently big booktuber. I've been watching her for years, and in her 2019 favourites, she said that this was her favourite book that she read that year, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, I had to read it. I had to see what it was about, so I finally got around to reading it. It's definitely very unique and different, and I really loved it. I'm so glad that I read it. It's sci-fi, technically. I think it's been classified as hard sci-fi. I think that's what the genre's deemed. And it's set in a world where there are two different possible futures. The agency and the garden, they are able to time travel, so they go back in time to different dimensions, different, as they refer to them, strands in time, alternative realities in a way, and they send back these kind of spies, these agents who will plant things and change things to ensure that their system is the way that the world will end up being, ultimate outcome of the world. And so this story follows an agent from either side. So we have Red, who is from the agency, and we have Blue, who is from the garden, and they start to leave each other notes, little letters. I would give this one, right now sitting here, I'd give it like a 9.5 out of 10. So close, it's so close, and I definitely think one day I'll reread it and just commit and give it the 10 out of 10 and say it's one of my absolute favourites. I already think it probably makes the list. I think this is definitely the kind of story that benefits from being reread, and I've heard from other people who've read it that upon rereading it they liked it more because it's a little bit confusing. But another reason why I couldn't commit to giving it the full 10 out of 10 is I wasn't as emotionally connected to it in the way that I wanted to be. I like books when they make me feel a lot of emotions, when I really feel like attached to them, and I was rooting for them a lot. I don't know, come the end, kind of, I'd say the last third, for some reason I just didn't feel as connected to it as I did the first two. I don't know what happened there, and it's so frustrating because I thought it was gonna be it, I think I'm gonna have to reread it. The thing with this one is that it's a very beautiful story. It's hard sci-fi, but it's also very romantic and flowery and metaphorical and just beautiful. It's written in that kind of dreamlike way where you're not 100% sure what's going on. You don't ever feel, I think, completely solidly rooted in the world, but that's not the point. The point is them and their story. I think that's very purposeful so you don't get lost in the sci-fi-ness of it all, and we stay with these characters, and I think we learn the right amount. And at first you're confused, but then as it goes on you do kind of start to get your bearings with some things, and if nothing else you can make your own assumptions as to what's going on. If you like The Night Circus, I think you would like this because it has the similar kind of dreamlike, hazy, romantic, beautiful writing quality that The Night Circus had. And it also kind of reminded me of The Fifth Wave and Duels for Smoke and Bone a little bit. This one's like adult hard sci-fi with a very strongly character driven story, and Duels for Smoke and Bone and The Fifth Wave are not. But the way that things pan out, I'm trying to be vague, reminds me of this one. Especially there's like a certain detail that was like, this reminds me so hard of Duels for Smoke and Bone. The title of this, I kept stumbling over. I kept thinking it was called This Is How We Win the Time War. I don't know why, and I couldn't shake it, and it's not, it's You Lose. Quite interesting actually to think about how the title relates to the book. It took me a minute to for it to click into place, like what it actually means, what it's referring to. I think it would make a really cool TV show as well, but I think I'm gonna have to go into that in the spoiler section. Okay. Spoiler section. Oh, do we want to talk about the cover actually? Not my favourite, but I read the book with the dust jacket on, and so I was looking at it a lot. The symbolic meaning behind it kind of started to make more sense. Like the birds are just kind of mentioned a lot throughout the book, so it makes sense for them to be birds on the cover. And kind of what birds symbolize, the fact that they're free and they're light. I do think I've kind of quite like the cover now. Okay, if you haven't read This Is How You Lose the Time War, then you should leave now because I'm gonna be talking in spoilers. Like I said, I think it'd make a really cool TV show. Each chapter could be its own episode. Obviously would have to expand things much more, and the world I think would need to be a lot more prevalent. I think would have to have a better idea of the world. I kept saying about how it's sci-fi, but really to me it's more of like a romance than it is sci-fi. Whereas I think the show would have to be a good equal balance between sci-fi and romance. But I think because the world is so unique, there's a lot of potential there that we could really dive into it more. That's not to say that the book should have done that. I think the book was absolutely done the right way. I think in a completely different medium, better suited, and then would end each episode with the letter, little adventures of them trying to like fix the time. We would have to have more interaction between them. I think they might have to see each other a few times. Things would have to be changed. I think it would have to be done well and with people who know and value the story for what it is and isn't changing it for the sake of changing it, but changing it genuinely just to make it suit the medium better. I've actually read on Goodreads that it might be becoming a TV show, I think. What I was referring to when I said it reminds me of Daughter of Smoke and Bone, I don't know if I want to spoil Daughter of Smoke and Bone, but the way in which we have the seed planted that Blue was infiltrated by someone, and that's the only time she was cut off from the garden, and at the time I didn't think that was going to be that relevant because we learned little bits of their past and it was related to something else they were talking about. At the end, Red she sees that painting in the subway, doesn't she, and she's like, maybe she's alive somewhere. She kind of went down a thought process that I didn't quite follow, and I think that might be another problem I didn't like the book. I'm going to get into it more in a little bit. And then she was collecting all of the pieces of Blue and herself, the Seeker. Again, I'm going to get into that in a minute, but it turns out she was the Seeker. And then she infiltrated Garden. She went and saw Garden. It was so interesting the way she felt so far, and she was the one that infiltrated Blue. She was the one who gave her the virus or whatever. If you haven't read Daughter of Smoke and Bone, I'm going to put a picture up here. Mute the screen until this picture leaves. It was so reminiscent of the whole Caro Madrigal situation, the way it was set up very subtly throughout and then it just kind of clicked into place. It felt like that. If not read Daughter of Smoke and Bone, it is safe to come back. Again, with the fifth wave, just the kind of things, little clues are left and then they kind of come to in such a great way. And the Seeker, I at first was like, is this something that's just in their world that we shouldn't actually look into? Like, it's just purposefully being unexplained. And then I started to wonder, like, is it a spy from one of their agencies, the agency or the garden? Do people know about them and they're just kind of secretly recording them and seeing where this will lead? And then I think pretty early on I got the idea that it was one of them going back to like erase all the evidence. Obviously it makes more sense now, that's why she was ingesting it, because she needed to infiltrate Garden. Another reason why I couldn't give it the full 10 out of 10 is because sometimes they'd have these like deep philosophical talks and I would get lost in them. A lot of what they said was quite metaphorical. I think rereading it would be beneficial there as well, because I wouldn't be so trying to figure out what's going on in their relationship and in the world, because I kind of have a decent idea now what's going on and I could focus more on what they're actually saying. In terms of the world, there's a lot of stuff we don't need to know, right? All the technology and the letters, we don't need to know about that. That's not important. I think what we did need to know, and what we did know, was a decent-ish idea about Garden and agency, because this is where they come from and it's so important to them because they were designed for this very purpose. And so just getting kind of like a feeling for them I think was really important, and I think it was done really well. We slowly kind of pieced together what they were like. The way that Garden, they liked music and art and food and it was all about life and everything was connected, and then in the agency everything was distant and hard and factual and cold, and there's an oracle and a prophecy and it must come true, and there's kind of like a different desperation command like vibe there, whereas Garden was more soft and loving. And it's just so interesting to me the way that we don't obviously know who ultimately wins, and I don't think anyone's ultimately gonna win because time's just gonna go forever. It feels like this time war is just gonna go on forever. Like, I can't see how one person can ultimately win because they eradicate all of the other team's efforts and just kind of destroy them completely. I don't think it's gonna happen. Blue created her own braid at one point. I didn't really understand what that meant. It's so great watching their relationship slowly evolve, and the way every now and then like a big monumental thing that would happen and the dynamic of their relationship would just shift entirely. Just like, I think it happened maybe twice, that when one of them said that they loved the other one, they kind of were full in and kind of committed then, and that another time, and when Blue saves Red from being eaten by the plant thing, whatever happened there, I think kind of things shifted then. Blue had directly affected Red's timeline. So interesting the way they saved each other, and they're both a really big part of each other's existence, and they both kind of like made up of one another because Blue has Red's blood inside of her. Red ate bits of Blue to get into Garden, so they're both kind of a bit of each other, and ultimately that's what they decided to do, to try and build a bridge between the two of them, create their own different situation. It was just so nice. The ending kind of, thank God Red didn't actually die or anything. I wasn't as upset when Blue died as I thought it was. I was pretty convinced that she wouldn't actually die. Even when she was dying, I was like waiting for her next letter, and then when we found her dead, I like gasped, I was shocked, and I was sad, and I teared up a little bit, but I wasn't as affected as I thought I was. But then I guess it's a very dreamlike. You have a better feel for the characters than you do the world, but they're still somewhat distant because you're only reading these letters, and these letters are somewhat formally written a lot of the time, the way it's so metaphorical. So there's still kind of that wall between them, and I think it feels much more like a private, intimate romance, even though you're reading it all. That's cool, actually. I kind of like that. Maybe I'm just expecting too much of the book. Maybe it's okay that I wasn't as emotionally connected as I wanted to, because I think it lends to the style. We never kind of really learned about how they travel through the strands and like the time travel. It's never really kind of fleshed out. I don't think it needs to be. It was something that I was thinking about for a while though. I think that could be something that you would have to explain in the TV show. You couldn't do the TV show in the same dreamlike way. I don't think it would work. It needs to be in your head, I think. This is where books really thrive. I don't think I have anything else to say. I really loved it. Definitely a work of art. I very much anticipate this being one of my favorite books of the year. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful morning, afternoon, evening / night. My name's Jade. I hope I see you again next time. Goodbye! Oh! I completely forgot. When they said that they loved each other, Blue said love Blue at the end of a letter. And then in the next letter, I believe, Red kind of professes her love of Blue. I really liked that letter. That was one of my favorites. And it reminded me of, what's the song called? In Hamilton, what's the song called? Oh my god. Take a Break! In Take a Break, when Hamilton does the comma.
You wrote a comma in the middle of a phrase. It changed the meaning. Did you intend this? One word and you consume my waking days, and it said, my dearest Angelica. With a comma after dearest, it said, my dearest Angelica. Like, it was so similar, do you not think?